The Power State Neighborhood Watch.
To the Powell Estate Neighborhood Watch, Doctor Who podcasting in the community. This week we're going way out west where an egocentric billionaire with hair loss problems is getting up to something sinister in the desert. Yes, we'll be hosting a round-robin discussion on Elon Musk and the Tesla Model Y. Only joking, I'm your Who host Grant, and as ever I'm joined by my fellow hosts Matt.
Hello.
And Graham.
Hello.
Hello, and this week we're going back to 2005 again, and we're going to be watching Dalek. We're at the halfway point of Series 1 now. So, first broadcast, 30th of April 2005. A bit of a double bill here, because this is both the first episode and by Robert Sherman, and the first directed episode by Joe Ahern. So this is going to be interesting. It's the first time where, I think since The Unquiet Dead, where we've not had a script written on paper anyway, by Russell T Davies.
You never can tell with Russell T Davies whether he wrote any of it or not, can you?
That's transpired. He rewrote some of them, didn't he, from the whole lot?
Yeah. So this was, like I said, first broadcast, 30th of April 2005, and with consolidated ratings of 8.63 million, which is almost up by 1 million from last week with World War III, which I believe had 7.43 million.
Imagine that's the title that drew a few extra people in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it RTD put out as a big slutty title? I think that's, definitely what this is. That might be Moffat, actually, who said that.
He said that he didn't have the Daleks, first of all, because it gave him a second launch. I think they say keeping your powder dry these days, don't they?
And also making sure everybody's kind of up to scratch before they tackle it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do end up with a McGann movie situation if you're not careful, don't you? It's like, this is the TARDIS, and this is the Time Lords, and they have two hearts, and this is what they do, and they have a companion. Oh, and there's this thing called the Daleks as well,
Yeah, so we open up the series and, open up the story, and with the TARDIS materialising in what appears to be another in a series of dark corridors, only it turns out that the Doctor is following a distress signal that he's picked up, and it's led him all the way to beneath the Utah desert to what appears to be a museum of aliens. In his very first line, we find out we're in the distant future of 2012.
I like this scene. It reminded me of the Space Museum.
Oh yeah, that's a very good link there. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, just the things, the way they're laid out is quite similar, actually.
And
yes, it's true.
They do both involve, getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, they do both involve a Dalek as a museum exhibit.
You see. There was a little nod to the fans there.
Yeah, for the hardcore.
I liked the juxtaposition of a Slovene arm and a revenge Cyberman.
Yes, that was very nice. That was
because that's definitely for the fans, the old fans. I mean, you even have a lingering close up of it.
Yeah, it's the most recent monster and one of the old classics.
I was going to say, I think that's definitely the first example of tangibly connecting modern Doctor Who to old Doctor Who, because they've kind of danced around it a little bit, like in Clive's Shed. I know Russell T Davies has said they had toyed with the idea of sticking a photo of Tom Baker or Sylvester McCoy or whoever in the back or amongst Clive's files, but I think they just leave it ambiguous by saying that's your Doctor there, isn't it? Implying more, and that whole line about a title passed down father to son. But this is really the two eras linking arms. That this is not a reboot. This is the same Doctor who worked with UNIT, the same Doctor who was there at the genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah, because there's a mention of Davros later, isn't there? If not by name.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
I did think at one point with all these, this guy was an alien collector, and it felt a little bit like this was going to be another, almost like a third in the trilogy with the Slitheen, whereas that was where the world first met aliens, and now we've moved on a few years, and people are collecting alien things.
Yeah,
It's
memorabilia.
like we're in a brave new world there, but it didn't go that way, did it? Because obviously they covered up the Slitheen and Staten. Hardly anybody else on the planet knows.
Yeah,
this collection.
I think you're right, though.
There are people on the planet who are well aware of aliens now, and possibly because of that incident. So it kind of felt like it was a good place to put this story.
Yeah, I think it's a. I don't know if it's deliberate, but I think it's perfectly. It seems to be an obvious leap from one to the next.
Yeah.
You know, especially as it's actually got a Slovene arm in it.
Yeah, somebody's taken notice of what's going on. They managed to set off the alarm by touching the display with, rookie error when you're in a museum. Van Statten's militia seem to get there pretty fucking sharpish, I know. It's like almost, they seem to pop out of the wall directly behind them.
And queue. They're all waiting for their queue, yeah. I like the fact that they're the Keystone Cops again, complete with the same helmets. It's very old school Who recycling the costumes like that.
Well, they blew up Downing Street last week. So
there you go. They're all there 6 years older.
There we go. They've gone into the private sector. Next person we meet is, himself, Henry Van Statten, striding down the corridor, making what appears to be decisions on a global level. I don't like the president, get rid of him. And he
I really like that shot, that little scene, because it's establishing very quickly, and I've written down that Van Statten is a rich, nasty, powerful, stupid prick.
Yeah.
And it's so much, you get the whole picture in one scene. And he's remarkably, of course, like Musk and Bezos and all the rest of them.
I did enjoy Van Statten a lot in this story. He's a little bit one-dimensional, but I think he's a great fun villain to have in there.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, I've got in my notes that Van Statten, I instantly love and hate him all at once. I mean, he's clearly a wonderful scenery-chewing villain. He's clearly such a bastard from the off. The actor, I apologise, I don't have his name to hand, but he's clearly, you can tell he's having a ball playing this complete selfish, narcissistic. He's smart, but nowhere near as clever as he thinks.
You would love playing that part.
There's no other layer to him, is there? He's just, I want this, so I'm having it.
Yeah. It's quite enviable, really, to be that sort of one-dimensional and not give a fuck that you are one-dimensional.
Oh, he probably cries himself to sleep at night because Mummy didn't love him.
I bet he doesn't, though.
No. So we've met him. Then he's a right piece of work, but now he meets the Doctor.
Yeah, I love that. Again, this is like I love so much about Eccleston's Doctor that he plays. He is never intimidated by anyone, especially a worm like Van Statten.
Well, it's a lovely little bit when he says, "Don't hold it like that," and you think it's going to be some terrible weapon, and that they're about to accidentally activate it, and it says, "Well, because it just looks silly."
Yeah, he's calling him out a little bit, and he's making him look.
And when he actually plays the instrument, and he's sort of all thumbs to begin with, and I said delicately, and then he actually plays it delicately,
and then throws it over his shoulder.
Yes.
Yeah, with a great
plasticky
noise instead of a proper clang or something, which is a reverse of what we had last week.
Maybe they got the sound files mixed up.
I mean, watch.
I might re-edit him.
That's the true series arc.
Yeah.
We need an apocalyptic clang, I think, as they called it in Bottom, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. It's the sound of a rubber frying pan hitting Rick Mail over the head.
Oh, it always makes me laugh because it's always the same sound effect, isn't it?
Yeah. But so yeah, the doctor and Rose are being interrogated by Van Statten in his office, and he's acting a bit of a petulant child towards them. He's not so much concerned about them getting in, more concerned if they've they've touched any of his precious commodities. And I want to take a moment at this time to say I love the set dressing here, that they've got this Picasso-looking cubist painting of himself behind his desk, and it's I love those kind of little tweaks to like show this is how much of an ego this guy has. It's in a sense, and it's a little bit Donald Trump, isn't it? I'm thinking the Trump before he became president, when he was just a bit of a mad businessman.
I don't know if this was in anyone's mind at the time when they did it either, but
No.
if they'd seen The House That Dripped Blood, John Pertwee does that after his first series as the Doctor, and he plays an actor who plays a vampire, who becomes a vampire when he puts a very Doctor-like cloak on, and he's got a portrait that's a bit like that when he's the tenant of the house that did drip blood.
Yes.
And I wondered if there was a little nod to it there.
I would hope so. I'm going to stick with that, and any evidence to the contrary I'm going to ignore. That's what I want to see it as.
But yeah, there's definitely overtones of Trump there, who was a known public figure at the time.
So we slowly. So the Doctor learns that Van Statten has his very own prisoner, his one living specimen down in the basement. And I love the slow reveal of the Dalek. That first off, we get it from its point of view, where this we're seeing this character Simmons trying to cut into him with an arc welder, and hearing that Dalek scream, it just leaves my blood curdling. It's hats off to Nicholas Briggs there for that. It sounds monstrous. It's terrifying that it's being tortured, and again, hats off to the guy playing Simmons, because he's playing this guy as a complete bastard, someone who's really getting off on this job, being able to. He doesn't care about what the Dalek's going to say. He's clearly just enjoying being able to be cruel for no good reason and getting a paycheck for it.
Yeah, some of the expressions he pulls are really disturbing. They're really they're multi-layered in a very bad way.
It's interesting to start an episode, or start the Dalek story in this episode with us starting to feel sympathy for the Dalek, who's been captured and tortured. It's an odd way to begin. I mean, not odd in dramatic terms.
Well,
it's good in dramatic terms. It's interesting, but it's just odd for Doctor Who to do that.
I think what it's playing on here is that new audiences, especially children, are not necessarily going to have the knowledge we have that Daleks are this terrifying race of outer space Nazis intent on galactic genocide. So it kind of plays with it for them that they don't necessarily know that the Dalek is this bubbling lump of hate in a tank. So children may initially feel sympathetic towards it, that they may not necessarily think the Doctor's right to hate it, that it's something that should be feared. I think that sympathy really can work in the favour for someone who's uninitiated to Daleks, because when it's when it turns traitor on Rose late in a couple of scenes time, it would come out of nowhere, whereas we're all, as seasoned fans, expecting them to betray us and shoot us in the back at any given second.
Yeah.
It's a clever reversal. Yeah, I think
it's
very intriguing. It's a new way of doing things as well, where we think in shades of grey, and it's not goodies versus baddies necessarily.
It's not the only time in this episode they play with the themes of hate and fear, and they subvert it. They make the Doctor will go through a whole range of these emotions, but there are points where he seems to be the bad one. They'll flip it again. Yeah. It's like it's Van Statten, the real villain in all of this. These are the themes of the episode, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, he appears to be torturing it rather than actually just killing it. And you could sort of understand why he might want to just kill it after the Time War, just finish the thing altogether. Yeah. But instead, he's actually switching the power on and off, which is, it's turning him into something that he doesn't want to be.
Yeah. Because at the top of that scene, the Doctor does what he usually does. He walks into the room. He knows there's a prisoner, that he knows there's an abused victim here. And, he says, I'm the Doctor, I'm here to help. I'm sorry that you've been put through this. He offers his usual range of platitudes. I'm a friend, you can trust me. And then we just see that those lights come on in the dark, the eyes stalk the ears, for lack of a better word, and then the lights come up and the Dalek slowly saying his name. And I love just the whip round we see that they whip the camera around from the Dalek. And I think this is the first time, especially this series, or possibly in all of Doctor Who, where the Doctor is screaming, he's banging on the door, he is desperate to be let out. This is the Doctor scared for his life. He has been the brave one, the one who runs into the fire, the one who does take a stand, who stands up to the bully. This is a man who is in fear of his life, and he is running scared. I love that just sells just the amount, just the fear going through him at the sight of a single Dalek. I think that was just brilliant.
It's a post-Time War Doctor as well, that he is sort of scared.
Yeah.
He's beaten an awful lot.
There's so much from Eccleston in this scene. It starts off with he's very sympathetic, then he becomes confused that the Dalek exists. You've got the fear and then the confusion. Then he's like the schadenfreude of knowing the Dalek can't fire. The guilt he feels over the Time War. It's amazing, this scene is. And the whole episode is brilliant in. But this scene, that's the moment I thought, this guy's going to be able to do anything that we need him to do.
Yeah. I love, like you say, I love his how he can go back and forth from pity to anger to fear. And we see him slowly turning into showing a bit of a bullying attitude. He becomes a bully towards the Dalek, and I love being able to see a level of the Doctor.
I think there's a lot of pain coming out of him, isn't there, in this scene from the Time War? He's facing his opponent. Yeah. Neither of them should be there, and it's all just flooding out of him. And he's not in total control of his emotions in this episode, is he?
Are we already getting Time War fatigue, I ask? With the Doctor looking into the distance and looking sad and all of that.
Like Picard's window. We call that Picard's window round our way. It's when you always have to go and stand by his window when you remembered the Borg.
Well, I do have a note from later on where I think it's the scene coming up right after the Doctor's tried to, like you said, Matt, prolong not just kill the Dalek, torture it, inflict as much pain as possible on it. That suddenly he's in a lift with two people he's known maybe half an hour, and he's already throwing off the greatest hits of the time. He's told them more about the Time War than he has Rose.
Yes.
With Rose, he told it all in very poetic terms. There was a great big war, everybody lost, my home's gone, our enemy is gone, I'm just a wanderer. But now he's saying, oh yeah, there was a fight, it was the Daleks, it was the Time Lords, it was Gallifrey blew up, Skaro's gone, Davros, boom. Older people who have no context to put it in, but just getting ahead of ourselves a little there. Just want to go back quickly to, like I said earlier in the episode, the Doctor's relation to his enemies, that's just, I think this is like the most extended amount of dialogue the Doctor's had with just a Dalek rather than Davros or the Emperor Dalek or anything in a very long time. He very rarely takes the time to talk to the soldiers, because that's what this one is. It's not anything special, it's just a soldier. But they both come to a slight understanding that they are, in this scene, and it gets expanded on later in the episode, that they are more alike than either would think. Both are now without a purpose, both are totally alone, both are the last relic of this war. They're both veterans. And it seems to me that almost hinting at the idea that, given their relative status now as endangered species, that could they possibly think of putting war aside to commiserate as, you know, the last people who you know, who could even discuss the Time War together, who had any concept of it. I thought that was a really quite an interesting beat.
And the alternative is to remain enemies. That's the only possible way they could get any purpose in their life, isn't it? But it would still just be a tired rehash of what it can never be as it was. Nobody, the Dalek and the Time Lords don't matter to anybody else anymore, because there's just these two left. They can only possibly mean stuff to each other. So if they, it would be interesting. It's an interesting idea to think, you know, a Dalek companion, possibly. What would that be like?
Dalek companion. I think I'd rather the talking cabin. Anyway, what do we actually think of the Daleks now they're back? What do we think of the new Dalek?
Oh, does it look like it? It doesn't look massively different to me. It just looks new and shiny and built properly.
Yeah, I think that's what I like. It looks like it's been manufactured. You know, the Dalek looks like it's been welded inside.
So I was going to say, I love that it looks like it's got some heft to it. It looks like both you said, like it's made out of cast iron. This is like, it's riveted. It's got some weight to it. It looks like it's rolled off a factory. It looks, you know, bronzed. It looks like a tank
metal
rather than
frond.
But I mean, compared to, not to do the previous Daleks a disservice, but they were quite clearly, you know, vacuum formed plastic and bits of wood. Yes,
they were shabby. They were just shabby. They just looked.
Yeah,
you know, they were using ones from cereals made 10 years before, and they were falling to bits, and they trundled and everything rattled, and
you could just about see the wobbling Dalek operator inside, shimmying from side to side. Just to cap off that scene, I really do like the Dalek not giving a single solitary shit about Van Statten. Every single person of importance in this story does not care about Van Statten and is not impressed. The Doctor is not impressed. Now the Dalek is not impressed, and Rose is certainly not impressed.
Yeah, the shot of the eye stalk just not doing anything.
Yeah.
After it's already spoken to the Doctor. Yeah, it's sort of amusing.
It's the Daleks. To me, it feels like it's giving off a little bit of a kind of smug, shit-eating grin energy as it just stares down Van Statten, and it's gonna sit there and it's gonna fold its arms and.
Yes, he's out of his depth now.
Yeah, I mean, he's still in control of the Doctor. That doesn't end well for the Doctor. As soon as he realises, because overhearing that conversation, he knows the Doctor's an alien now, doesn't he?
It's another story where. Another story, we don't get that many, but it's a story where the Doctor's sort of carried along with the flow of events.
He's very much not in control.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really do anything per se, you know?
Yeah, he's just dealing with his feelings from the Time War, isn't he? All the way through, he's just reacting instantly and emotionally rather than thinking things through so much.
It's an interesting point in that it makes a change that the Doctor hasn't got to come up with a story or explain who he is or wave the psychic paper. Van Statten just accepts that he's an alien and just treats him like any other alien. He wants to just analyse him and see what makes him tick.
Yeah.
And then patent him and box him and...
Yeah, which is quite a scary thought.
Well, character options have been doing it for a good long while. They seem to be fine.
They haven't done a strapped up Doctor with his shirt off model yet.
There's a custom out there. There must be. So at this point, we jump over to see what Rose has been getting up to with her new best friend, Adam. And so Adam's clearly trying to impress her a little bit. He's giving her the whistle-stop tour of his little laboratory down in the basement. And I did allude to this in the last episode that I think this is possibly outside of the TARDIS set, which I don't think we've seen in... Did we see it last week or the week before?
I don't think we saw it last week, no.
No. But outside, this is the first repurposed set, because Adam's lab is actually a redress of Clive's shed.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I would not in a million years have noticed that.
No.
I'm fairly certain it is. I mean, I did look into it, and I apologise if any fans out there are listening to this and screaming at me for being wrong, but I'm fairly certain it's repurposed. It's got the same kind of shape to it, with a table in the middle and the windows on the left-hand side.
No, I do like a redressing.
Yes. I like to think this is a tribute to Revenge of the Cybermen reusing the Nerva Beacon set.
Yes.
Doctor Who being thriftiness.
We did get that Nerva Beacon. Would be mentioning that in the next episode.
Oh, yes.
They return to a space station.
Oh yes. Do you know? I don't think I'd thought of
Levels.
that. It's true. Yeah.
It's my favourite thing about the first series.
So we get to see a nice little bit of very overt flirting between Rose and Adam. She's clearly quite taken with him, and he's clearly trying to impress. And there's a little bit of... They do draw parallels a little bit with Adam and the Doctor, him saying fantastic, and, he's got a much purer ideal towards alien life and outer space than Van Statten has. Van Statten just wants the brag of being able to own an alien, whereas Adam would quite like to, he'd like to, walk on the moon. He would quite like to, meet a real life Martian. So I think that's quite nice. But how do we feel? I'll put it to you first, Matt. How do you feel about the kind of dynamic between Rose and Adam himself at this point?
One, I'm thinking, boy genius, do we really want another boy genius? And two, I'm thinking, poor bloody Mickey. After everything he's been through, and here she is, with yet another fella.
I find Adam a little bit irritating as a character, to be honest.
Oh,
Possibly
he is.
because of that boy genius thing.
Oh, he is irritating. Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, I'm quite, for this scene at least, I'm quite taken with his kind of optimism, his kind of, the parallels to the Doctor. He does seem to be noble of heart, and frankly, I put in my notes, they are acting very horny towards each other.
Oh, yeah,
watching
definitely.
it now, it's very Billy Piper's body language towards him, his, and it's, again, I don't quite like, it's some very bad flirting, and like you said, Matt, I've got in my notes here, didn't she get back with Mickey last week? I mean, I'm sure she sees him off with a snog and a bit of a cuddle.
Yeah.
And at this point, Mickey hasn't exactly covered himself in glory the first couple of episodes, but I'm a bit more on his side now. I mean, if his girlfriend's getting up to all sorts like this behind his back, can you really blame him for a lot of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think poor Mickey is, he's living the life that fate has dealt him. And Rose is just a bit more dissatisfied than him and has this opportunity to widen her horizons. But if the Doctor hadn't arrived in her job that day, she would still be leading that life of chips and going to the pub, wishing there was more. It's just it's not Mickey's fault, I think.
No.
The thing is, Mickey was an idiot when we first met him, and after World War III, we don't think he's an idiot anymore.
Well, he probably never was.
All that as a two-parter. It's like So to be honest, when she said, thanks for what, nothing, those lines, I was like, yeah, get rid of him, go off with the Doctor, forget about him. Now it's like, you could at least tell him if you're thinking that way, please. Rather than just have him there as a sailor in every port when you come back to Earth. Yeah,
because that's what it's like, isn't it? That's how it comes across. It's still a really horrible line, that, that thanks for what, exactly,
I'd hate to be on the end of
that. That when that happened, I thought it was brilliant, but now I'm thinking that's just really rude now.
Yeah.
Really hurtful.
Yeah.
So my mind has changed towards what Mickey is and how she treats him, but I think they are bringing in a love interest into this story because of this perceived or possible romance between the Doctor and Rose. They're building up towards Captain Jack turning up, which is another kind of that throws it into sharp relief as well. They are making us consider that this is a romantic relationship, even if it never actually gets there.
It all felt a little bit ad hoc to me, the way that we had, Adam sort of parachuted in, and then later on we had Jack parachuted in. It's like, was it just the case of they liked the way the characters were turning out when they wrote them, and especially when they were acted? Or was this always part of the design, that we would have characters dropping in and out like this?
Well, from all I've read, I kind of think Adam is kind of twofold. That he's, and again we'll cover this more in the next episode, but he's built up to show to the audience a companion that failed, who didn't pass the Doctor's test, because next week we see him take the opportunity offered to him by the Doctor and make a complete pig's ear out of it and do everything we hope a companion wouldn't do.
Which is interesting in itself, because of course not long after that Rose does exactly that, doesn't she?
Yeah. So I think there's definitely supposed to be a little bit of an arc there with especially with the Adam character.
He was meant to come in and go quite quick. The partners, but I never really took to him, and I'm glad he went. But that's possibly because this was a great episode, but the next one, mind you, I haven't seen it for a long time.
Well, I always think you need your store of invisible enemies to go with your to keep your pyramids of Mars looking better.
That's not that I think it's a bad story. I just think it left no real impact.
Yeah, which I think a lot of old Who was like.
Yeah, no, to be fair, it's just we had more of it. We were used to it being there, didn't we? We had probably at least 4 episodes.
Yeah.
It's like that saying.
But I think any long-running series is like that. If you watch an old episode of Corrie now, so little happens in some of them. Now they have helicopters crashing and God knows what every week it feels like.
At this point, Rose and her new beau head down into the basement to talk to the Dalek, because Rose has watched the goings-on, seeing it being tortured by this, horrible, nasty bloke in Van Statten's employment, and give this Dalek a BAFTA award, because it's little acting here about it being alone and being scared and being lonely. It plays rose like a fiddle so beautifully, and you almost feel the sympathy she feels for it. I find. How did you find that, Matt?
It harks back to the power of the Daleks for me, in the way that the Daleks managed to convince everybody that they literally are their servants, and there's nothing harmful about them. And I always think it's curious that Terry Nations just saw them as quite one-dimensional Nazis, but David Whittaker, who of course would have been, originally was responsible for introducing them in his way, actually saw that ability that they had to be conniving and be a bit more subtle with their methods to get the same thing that they as little Nazis wanted, to survive and to destroy.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I was totally taken in by that Dalek. I thought the Dalek, this is how they were going to write the Daleks now. This is one Dalek left. There aren't going to be others. Maybe we are going to get a different type of Dalek. But then she touched it and it all went wrong.
It struck me as a little bit convenient that one touch could do so much. I don't know what you two think.
Well, they had explained that touching it makes people burst into flames.
We'd had that, hadn't we? Hence Adam saying, no, don't, Rose,
Yeah.
Well, I did put in my notes that, a bit convenient. Rose touches it, it heals the Dalek, but the other guy burst into flames.
Yes.
But they do have a line later on that it's because she's a time traveller, so she's soaked up whatever background radiation, and
it's why Rose regenerated the Dalek and that bloke didn't.
Yes, exactly. But going back to your point, Matt, I mean, I definitely I've even got them in my notes. I love when the Daleks are cunning and not just robots. I love when they can be manipulative, especially there's a tendency to make them drones once you give them a leader figure, whether that's like the Emperor Dalek or the Dalek Prime or Davros. They just become foot soldiers. When they are just egalitarian Daleks, there's no hierarchy to them, and when they can just be manipulative and playing chess themselves, moving the pieces into place, that's when I think they work best, and I really like they bring that back with this Dalek.
Yeah, because otherwise they just become like the sort of the machine that goes around by itself cleaning the floor at London Bridge now.
Yeah,
they're not any more scary than that. I like to stand in front of it and make it stop.
Yeah. You'll be first come the revolution, that's what it's
I know, the thing looks at me, I swear it does.
It's going to be like that scene in Planet of the Apes where it's on horseback with the whip chasing you down. Yeah. But this is, the Dalek screaming back into power. I love that. We're at the halfway point now of the story, and it's we're finally getting to see the Dalek in all its pure majesty. It's because we get the line. I like that they do address that the sink plunger is a little bit silly looking, anyway, and it becomes famous last words for Simmons. I think it is. What you're going to do? Unblock a toilet at me or whatever he says, and it's I've got my notes. It's immensely satisfying watching him get his head crushed by this toilet plunger. It's just, after watching him being a little sadist and a little, a bastard, it's for a moment you're on the Dalek side. That course, you're gonna crush this guy's face into a pulp.
Yeah, I did love the fact that they turned them plungers that I'd always considered pretty useless. What was the point of adding them into a killing tool? I love that.
Yeah.
And it also, I mean, the CGI wasn't that great, but it did the job. But it meant that they can use those plungers for other things. They can pick things up with those plungers, which I'd never considered before. And it changed my whole perception of that plunger instantly, that scene.
Well,
Yeah,
they used to
love it.
use them to pick things up in the early days, didn't they? And
Yeah,
the
but it was just like but they can grip.
controls were all designed for them to operate with the plunger.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
some thought had gone into it, but of course it just became a joke over the years, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's curious to feel yourself on the Dalek side. It's a weird one.
Yeah. It's even if it's momentary, I think this episode does a very good job of flashing back and forth between making us sympathize with this, this alien tank, that's, that the Doctor is explicit at this point points out, it is, a hate-filled, blob of primordial mutation that has, that considers everything around it to be disgusting and unworthy of existence, and until it must kill until it's destroyed, or it has destroyed the entire universe. That's its most basic protocol. But yeah, so at this point, the Dalek goes on the offensive, and at this point, this is. I think we alluded to it earlier in the episode, and certainly last week, but honestly, none of these soldiers look like soldiers. They all look like extras in black overalls who do not look in any sort of way look like, the sort of Marines that Van Statten would have hired. But I suppose, you could hand wave that as them being, these are the sort of the washouts and the ex-cops.
Yeah,
who,
that makes sense.
Do need that sort of private security gig after, But it's a problem Doctor Who has faced since time immemorial, that their soldiers are genuinely
they're not convincing.
40-year-old Welshmen.
Yeah, they're not convincing, but to be honest, they're cannon fodder at this point, really.
Yeah.
Aren't they? So it's like they ain't gonna last long.
Well, we get a lot of scenes where they just line up waiting to be shot, and we do get scenes where you just think, "Why don't you run?" And they don't.
I get very, very angry when people continue to shoot. Unit really wind me up doing this. Continually shoot things when it has no effect.
Yeah,
it's just like you'll stand there 5 minutes, keep shooting, they'll empty a whole magazine, and it's like it's not.
Yeah.
The first one didn't have any effect. The second one ain't. Why you keep going? Why you get out of there? Find a
If it
rocket
works,
launcher.
if it works, that would be some fucking coincidence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like suddenly it's like maybe this one will be the bullet. No,
Just the
go
one.
and get a flamethrower, a rocket launcher, a tank. Go and get a tank.
You might as well try a stick at this point.
What did they think just ordinary bullets were going to do against a thing made of metal anyway?
Well, they know there's a thing inside it, but they ain't going to get through it like that, are they?
Yeah, but they can see it's like a mini tank as well, can't they?
Yeah. And as the guy they all know, who seems to have been spent months or years trying to use a chainsaw and various other devices to open it up, and he's got no further than them. But their police special sidearm is gonna I'm guessing he's recruited his security staff from people who think they're Dirty Harry or something. The Colt, the Magnum, this will blow your head clean off, and they've never met a problem that gun can't solve.
I think they probably are all the ones who've broken the Geneva Convention have been chucked out as well. Yeah. Sacked security guards as well. Yeah. All that sort of thing. The anti-tank thing, though, it reminds me of the rather bizarre scene in Remembrance when the Doctor and Ace just take possession of some anti-tank weapons.
Yeah.
And they just say, "You'll have to sign for them, sir."
I know.
Which is...
the 60s were a very different time. High grade military equipment to a schoolgirl and a man in a stripy jumper.
Sign for that. Have you got a library card?
Especially the 1988 version of the 60s.
Yeah. In fact, I'm fairly certain McCoy signs it with a question mark in that episode, and you kind of want the clerk or storesman to go, "Whoa, Neddy, whoa, Neddy." You know, if you're going to sign for it, I'm going to need the old John Q. Hancock right there. I can't take.
Anyway, that's another story, but
yeah, I'm still fixated on these soldiers because I mean, I was watching myself and I felt bad for doing it. Watching them and seeing how many times they blinked and flinched when they were firing the gun, and it was far more than you'd expect. This was clearly, you know, a couple of extras who are used to doing, you know, a bit of parochial stage play. They've been busting for the day. They've been given craft services. They've been given the nice black uniform and the prop gun, and they look absolutely terrified. A lot of them firing them off.
There's Adrian Mills in The Making of Kinder talks about some of the extras who are brushing stuff off their costumes on camera.
Brilliant. I've never noticed that about Kinder before. We have to, next time I watch it, you have to keep an eye out for that.
I've never looked. The only thing I've noticed is him himself keeping an eye on when he's in the sort of the fake survival suit thing. And it's caught fire, and he's sort of looking down at it to make sure it doesn't suddenly engulf him, which is fair enough.
Yeah. It's another slightly wobbly scene for me, but we're told in rather scary terms that the Dalek is now downloading the internet. And Graham, I want to put this to you first. How do you think that would have gone?
Well, I don't know how that works because they're downloading all the shite as well, aren't they? But I don't know where to go with that. I don't know how big the internet was in 2005, but that would take my computer weeks to do that. But I mean, it's not the internet. It's like loads of websites on the internet, isn't it? So reading every website.
I mean, I read it as it was downloading the actual defense net and everything that the internet was originally based on. But yeah, it does sound. You do think of all the sort of porn sites and eBay and everything.
Yeah,
coming down that sucker with it, you know.
I mean, I've got in my notes here that, you know, so this is now a Dalek that's filled almost entirely with hardcore pornography and Harry Potter fan fiction.
Totally. It's a bit the happiest little Dalek there is, isn't it?
Some of the fan fiction would.
You would know all the football results. It'd be great at pop quizzes and stuff, wouldn't it? You'd want it on your team. Team TARDIS.
Yeah.
You can answer this one, Dalek-y.
Don't. Big Finish will do it.
You mean that? I mean, we possibly should mention Robert Shearman wrote Jubilee for Big Finish, and this is supposed to be based on Jubilee.
Yes.
All I can remember from Jubilee, because I believe it was set in like an alternate future, kind of a feudal future, but it had a Dalek who was imprisoned, and then the Doctor was imprisoned with the Dalek.
Yes. So
it's not the same story, but it's kind of like they possibly used it as a starting point, something that worked. Otherwise, it would just be a complete coincidence getting Rob Shearman in.
Yeah.
There's definite parallels, yeah.
I did for a long time wonder whether Rob Shearman's got his name on the credit because Russell T Davies wanted to rip off Jubilee and he wrote it himself.
Well, I was under the suspicion that Russell T Davies, you know, had this initial idea, the Dalek in Chains idea, because at this point we should say, I mean, for the first few months of the news, the revival coming back, we weren't entirely sure if we were going to be able to get the Daleks back, because there was apparently a bit of a rights issue that I think wasn't solved.
Yes.
That close.
Yeah. And because I know Russell T Davies has written that he did have an alternate script prepared where it would be revealed to be one of the Toclafane in the museum, and it would actually be the Toclafane who were the enemy of the Time War. And I'm fairly certain there's even a line in it about, you know, the Toclafane had even wiped out the Daleks to cover their them being Sir not appearing in this series.
A friend of mine, talking of the Toclophane, he was convinced they were going to be the Sontarans because they were an anagram of a fat clone.
Oh.
I was just like, no, mate, no. But, he was disappointed in the end. But yeah, no, the Toclophane are quite, they are, let's say, a distorted human inside a casing, aren't they?
Yeah, you can see the Dalek.
They are a mutation.
Broad
They are basically the Daleks in another timeline, aren't they? Another universe.
I'm just surprised that Rob Shearman only wrote this one.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I say. That's part of the reason I think it might have been they had to get him on side, and then they just used what they wanted of Jubilee.
yeah.
And it's just like, it didn't really write this at all. But having said that, I've read his Target novelisation, and it's excellent of this story.
Oh, good.
Well, that's it. You do
Really
wonder
is.
why he hasn't written more, and why Paul Cornell hasn't written more, and why we keep getting the showrunner's vision of things when variety is good.
I think it may be a case that Shearman, at this point, is getting quite a big name for himself outside of Doctor Who novels as a respected playwright, in his own right. So his career is taking off in a parallel direction anyway. So it may just be a case of that he didn't have time to set aside, because by all accounts, writing Doctor Who scripts in the modern times is a bit of a long, thankless struggle.
Always was, by the sound of it.
Yeah. So yeah, the Dalek is now fully on the offensive, and I don't know how you guys feel about it's now suddenly got some new abilities. It can do the whole Neo from the Matrix stopping bullets in midair and burning them up. It can swivel its midsection like a turret. Some of it I like, but
this is what I was alluding to earlier. I loved that Dalek when it was obviously a solid metal thing, but as soon as you CGI it to do things, it stops looking real to me, and it lost that weight that it had. But I quite like some of those abilities, but they just weren't as well realised as they needed to be for me. So they needed to still look heavy, and they suddenly looked like superficial.
For me, the sudden thing where it swings around the midriff, it's fine, but you've got to give it some vulnerability if it's going to be defeated. But also, it's like, I don't think we ever see that again, do we? In the new series.
I'm fairly certain we don't even see it when they turn up in the finale. Spoiler alert.
Which is only a couple of weeks later.
5 weeks away.
Yeah. So it's like, it just felt gimmicky.
I think the worst bit of it is the last bit of it. And we'll get there when it's time.
Yeah, you flagged up you have issues with that, and I'm looking forward to finding out what they are. I do like the soldiers trying to negotiate with the Dalek, and it's just having absolutely no truck with that whatsoever. It's toying with them almost.
Yeah, I think there's a certain type of TV series and film style that we've got very used to by then, where that sort of thing, that negotiating thing, happened quite a lot. And, a Dalek's not going to listen to any of that. Which brings us to the stairs, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, as most people do, Rose and Adam, they flee up the stairs and they think, aha, we've got this Dalek beat. And I quite like that they tackle this head on, the old stairs joke that, if you want to get away from the Dalek, just run up a flight of stairs. So, yeah, I don't know about you. How did you first, Graham? Do you think they handled this pretty well? dealing with getting the stair problem out of the way instantly.
It did seem very, very reminiscent of when they did it before. Was it Remembrance, when they went up the stairs? And it did seem almost set up to actually pay homage to that. I thought it was good to get it done. It was a moment. Those jokes had been ubiquitous all the way through the time it was off the air. So whether they'd done it in Remembrance or not, people didn't know they'd done it.
Yeah, so definitely.
Because hardly anyone was watching by then.
Yeah,
so it sort of got missed.
And certainly none of the children watching this in 2005.
Yeah, and it's the obvious thing looking at it, isn't it? When you see this Dalek wheeling around the floor, you suddenly do think, well, you're not going to be able to get up the stairs. If this is your first Dalek episode, that is a good moment.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the only thing I'd say about the stairs is they spend an awful lot of time standing on that staircase watching the bloody thing, even though they've realised it can now follow them.
Yeah,
because he can aim his gun up.
Well, there was that as well. Yeah, it's like, well, why didn't it just get them while it was at the bottom of the staircase?
Yeah,
and
bang.
The lovely lady soldier who's with them has gives her rather pointless last stand. It's almost like that scene in Austin Powers with the steamroller rolling slowly towards the henchman while he, screams, and it feels like I get the feeling they just needed her written out of the next scene, so they didn't have enough dialogue to carry three people running up a flight of stairs.
I thought she was trying to buy them time to get away, which they completely ruined by standing there chatting while she was sacrificed. So it's like, well,
it's curiously like the early days of the series. It's a curiously clunky bit where instead of doing stuff, people are talking about it and cutting between scenes of it.
Yeah.
I still think the scene worked more than it didn't, I think.
Well, yeah, the point of it is to answer all the jokes about Daleks not being able to go upstairs, isn't it?
Yeah.
It succeeds in that.
So at this point, we're cutting back and forth to the Doctor and Van Statten in his office. The Doctor spends a good chunk of this episode in Van Statten's office typing away at a keyboard. But I do like Van Statten goes back and forth between, I'll have anyone's head who leaves a scratch on the Metaltron. He's placing that above, their lives. But there's also, he does some amazing, he has a wonderful look on his face when he's listening to the gunshots just slowly stop one by one, and it sinks in that people are dead, that he is, his hubris is has because he feels like the sort of person who's never had to run into trouble. He's never faced the consequences of his actions. He's very much a screw the rules, I have money kind of guy. And I do quite like that they showing another level of despicableness to him, that he is, he's not just a bully and an arsehole, he's also a tremendous coward.
Yeah, no, I like that. I love the way those bullets stopped, because it was terrifying.
Yeah.
These Daleks are coming, and they're not, or this Dalek is coming, and it's not going to stop. And it did also give us that insight to Van Statten as well. I really like that bit. But I liked Doctor. This is gradually Van Statten's losing any power over anybody, isn't he? Goddard stopped listening to him now. She's listening to the Doctor, isn't she?
He's keeping it together nicely, though, considering how it's all slipping out of his control.
Definitely, yeah. So at this point, the Doctor and Van Statten realise the best thing they can do is to put the base into lockdown and try to contain the Dalek in below a certain level, so they can at least buy themselves some time to think of a plan. So this is one of Doctor Who's favourite tropes. Against a clock, and a closing door. I'm sure we've seen this, a dozen or so times by this point. And again, we get Adam and Rose running down a corridor, and it's become a bit of a trope for myself. I've got in big capital letters, Adam's jeans, because he looks like he's going to take off with those boys.
Were they creating drag and slowing him down?
Yeah, he was like the flying nun.
They were like that, those jeans. I remember.
Yeah.
I actually thought of the jeans when Rose is standing with the Dalek later, because it's her in her little white vest.
Yeah, she needs their jacket, a rather nice jacket.
It's a very 2005 image.
Oh yeah, I mean, looking back at the cold light of day now, the fashions in this, it's very off their time. You know, the flared low cut jeans paired with the with a plain vest. I'm sure we've said. I think someone described it as pastel emo. Her look.
Yeah, seems fair enough.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a cock up on Russell's part there, isn't it? Really, to think that 2012 they'd still be wearing the same jeans.
Yeah, I mean, 2009 was the birth of the
TARDIS, but Adam's got no excuse.
Adam should be wearing absolutely like skin tight stuff by this time.
Yeah, he should be. I mean, let's face it, most hipsters. Or the silver jumpsuit.
Someone from the future, it's a silver jumpsuit. That's the language of science fiction.
Those are the rules. We don't make them; we just enforce them. The Dalek has, made its final stand against a room full of Van Statten's stuntmen, and he's having his final square off with the Doctor, and he just comes back out with that. He's absolutely determined. He just needs orders. That's all it wants at this point. It's in search of a purpose, because it's it has nothing better to do. That's its motivations here. It has nothing better to do with its time than to kill until it gets orders. And the Doctor rather angrily tells it, "Why don't you just die? Drop dead." And I love the Dalek taking a moment to pause and then deliberately wind the Doctor up by pointing out he would make a good Dalek. And at that point, they just cut all the sound, and it's just like about 2 seconds of silence while the Doctor is left speechless, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I don't, because this is not who the Doctor is, but I don't think it still is. This is emotional reactions taking over. The Dalek has stirred something in him, isn't it? That he's not comfortable about his role in the Time War, and the result of the Time War with him surviving. This is the Doctor's lost self-control, and the Dalek. You're right. The Dalek does enjoy doing this.
Yeah, this is
meanness, isn't it? This is cruelty.
Well, it's what you were saying about platitudes earlier. The Doctor's got all his little kit of platitudes, but when it comes to the Daleks, he loses all of that, and he's much more. He's much less sanctimonious and pious than he likes to come across. Eccleston does it so well as well. The Doctor's so angry.
It's brilliant in this episode.
But then so sort of struck by what the Dalek says as well.
Yeah, it's a real kind of powerhouse episode, I think, for him here, because we get to see, like we keep saying, the Doctor's the pacifist hippie element that's always there with the Doctor. He solves problems with words and deeds rather than violence and guns. We see him almost reduced down to a very primal level, because I describe his fear of the Dalek as a primal fear.
Yeah,
that this strips him down to his core, puts him in a sort of fight or flight mentality against a Dalek. And I wouldn't say we're seeing the Doctor's true colours, but we're definitely getting an examination of who he can be.
Yeah.
we can see what can happen when he is pushed to the limits of, of his fear and his anger. Because I would definitely say anger does come into it a lot, but I definitely think his prime motivator here is fear. He is scared of this Dalek. He is scared of what this Dalek is capable of. He's scared of what this Dalek is doing. Again, like we were saying, putting out Van Statten, nearest city, 1 million people, all dead. The Dalek will not break a sweat. It will keep killing until it has destroyed your world. It doesn't need a reason. It can't. He describes it in terms like it's the Terminator or something.
Well, there's that line. It's something like it's the ultimate in ethnic cleansing or something, or racial cleansing.
Yeah, and
you unleashed it, Van Statten.
Yeah. You took the locks off this thing. You should have killed it when you had the chance. You should have left it buried. It's thinking about it. The Doctor almost talks about it in the way, that it's a predator, not just in general terms, almost like it's the predator for his species, because he holds it ultimately responsible for the extinction of his people. Okay, he was put in the position where he had to destroy both sides, but he definitely seems on some level to hold the Daleks responsible for his current predicament. Definitely,
yeah.
There's definitely an element. The reason he's losing control is he thought he'd never have to deal with these things again. The one light that comes out of the Time War was that the Daleks are not there to destroy again. He's had to sacrifice so much, and it's like now they're back after all of that, and I've still got to deal with this shit.
Yes,
it's interesting because I think we next see him, and he's actually going through the weapons store.
Well, at this point, Rose is running for the door, and she's just missed it. So, and again, this scene I find it very touching. It's she rather casually tells the Doctor, "Sorry, not this time. Bit too slow." But
this is
I don't regret a second of it.
This is foreshadowing of the finale of next season as well, isn't it? When they're trapped on either sides of a wall.
Yeah.
I found that was echoing quite a lot when I was watching this again.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
It's I don't know whether that was deliberate or he just saw it and thought, "Oh, I could use that again." Or
maybe
use that better. So, but anyway,
I thought the Doctor was going to hit Van Statten as well at that point. He was,
and he had to do it himself as well. He had to press the button himself to shut that door, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
As this comes after an episode where he said, "Oh, I could save the world but lose you."
Yeah.
And now he's in exactly the same position again.
He's got a poor memory as well, hasn't he? Because he puts all his companions through this every week.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, "Oh, we know she's not dead. Why are you trying to make out she's dead? If you were going to kill that companion, you would not let it happen off screen." It's complete dramatic dud, that. It's not going to work, is it? Nobody's going to buy that she's dead.
No, but the Doctor thinks she's dead, doesn't he? So that's...
No, he doesn't. He's been there before. He's been there every week. He knows all right, okay, yeah, okay, the Doctor does. Fair enough.
I suppose...
It's just like, I'm not buying that. Never buy that for a second.
I suppose it's just a case of it's never about we never buy they're going to kill the Doctor or kill the companion. It's more a case of how are they going to get out of it. That's the interesting part.
I suppose 10-year-olds would think that she might be dead, I guess, because they've been watching this first Doctor Who ever.
Yeah, and this Dalek creature does have a bit of heft behind it to be the sort of one that does get the better of the Doctor. You would buy it.
Yeah.
So that was it. That was where it all Doctor's plan all fell apart because the Dalek has Rose. The Dalek gets out of this basement, doesn't it? He just immediately opens the door again.
But so the it turns out Rose hasn't been killed by the Dalek, and he's actually decided to use her as a hostage. I know, surprise, surprise. 30 seconds later, And but I have to say, the Doctor's Christopher Eccleston's palpable joy at seeing Rose Tyler is still alive. It's infectious. I can't help but smile with him.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll say this is where the line is, you have to save the woman you love.
Oh,
This scene.
I know.
It's like,
I didn't like it either.
No, it's just, I mean, there was no discussion about that. It was just like, I just took that, right, that's an assumption that's being made. That's not necessarily what the truth is.
yeah,
It's just cringy.
it is cringy, yeah.
But it's clearly now the direction they're going in.
Sadly.
They tried to create a love triangle with Mickey. They're trying to create one with Adam. Then there's going to be one with Captain Jack. And then they're going to lose each other. And it'll be David Tennant. And it won't be less icky somehow.
Just the age difference, I suspect.
Yeah. But I do like the Doctor laying into Adam, taking out his frustrations. Saying, "Oh, you got through that door pretty fucking sharpest, didn't you, lads?" You know.
What was Adam supposed to do? Was he supposed to wait there and be killed as well, or was he supposed to try and hold the bloody door up, even though he wouldn't have been able to do it?
If he's a gentleman, yes.
Yes, I was going to say, ladies first. At this point, the Doctor's had to let Rose go. He's had to let the Dalek go and open the doors, and Van Staten is confronted by the Dalek in his, on reflection, rather tiny office. And it seems quite strange that every lift leads out directly into his office. What seems to be a lift that seems to run the entire length of his complex. It's a bit security unconscious, but I quite like that he is such a worm in this scene. He's confronted by the Dalek, and he's throwing these blatant lies at him. "Oh, I only ever wanted to help you. I only ever wanted to. We thought you were suffering. We thought we wanted to get you out of them." And you're thinking, pull the other one. It's got bells on, mate. You're not fooling anybody. You're a petty little slug who is only trying to save his own skin.
Two things came to mind here. One was the first one is when the Dalek and Rose are coming up in the lift, and it swings its eye around, and she has to duck, which is quite a nice little touch because you don't ever really see that in the old series. But also, as soon as she emerges from the lift, she says something like, "It's begun to doubt itself. Don't do anything." She's really taken control in a way that seems beyond her years, which is a nice little character touch.
And she has been through some things at this point. She's developing an instinct for this.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice character development.
She also seems to be developing a bit of a psychic link with the Dalek, I noticed, because when the Dalek says, "My function is to kill," you can see Billy Piper mouthing those words in the background.
Oh, wow, really?
I've noticed this. The last couple of times I've watched it. It's very faint, but she's obviously doesn't realise she's still on camera. It's fairly close to Rose, but you can see her just go, "She needs to kill." Just like, just mouthing the lines slightly. So obviously she's waiting for her cue.
Dalek, and this Nicholas Briggs guy isn't just
Maybe.
So either that's a lovely bit of serendipity, or it's a really nice character touch, which is largely unnoticed.
So the Dalek is stopped by Rose in Van Staten's office, and he's got a very simple demand. "I want freedom." We can definitely see the Dalek changing here. I don't think we've seen a Dalek not only ask, but almost plead for its freedom.
It's all going wrong for him at the Dalek. Everything's straight. He's started to be influenced by the changes from Rose's DNA, isn't it? It's like this is a Dalek trying to work out what to do next now, because he was so determined when he was escaping. When he hooked up with Rose, it does take a turn there, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah.
Yes, it was a strange word for a Dalek to use.
Yeah, because it's used to taking freedom away from other people.
I assumed at the time that it meant this was a trick, and he wanted to get out. He wanted to escape. That's what freedom was. It was like, I want to be out there killing everybody, but obviously not realizing that that's not what you got to say to Rose to get it to her.
No.
But it was him who blasted the hole in the wall roof anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he didn't need to beg for it. He could have just done it. So that's my theory up the wall.
Backtracking slightly, I do quite like the Doctor going through Adam's cage of goodies, and I do like Adam's logic that he's seen the writings on the wall with guys like Van Stassen. He knows one day he's probably going to have to shoot his way out. But the broken hairdryer gag is quite nice as well. It's a very Doctor Who thing, isn't it?
Well, there's a bit in the book where William Hartnell says, "Bring that hairdryer or whatever it is down," and I think that's a complete. He's forgotten his line, or it's an ad lib or something.
It was a very Rocket the Raccoon gun he got out at the end, wasn't it? Ridiculous. It was basically a cartoon pistol, wasn't it, really?
Well, I've got my notes here that all of these guns he's throwing about the place don't look particularly heavy and do seem to bounce when they hit the floor.
They lack the clang.
They had the wrong clang on them. You get the clang wrong, nothing seems right. But yeah, that was fun. That was a fun scene, that actually. But the Doctor never uses that gun, does he?
No, he can't afford to.
Well, he's run out. He's intending to, but Rose won't get out of the way until she's made her feelings known. I guess.
Yeah.
And made the point that she's trying to make to the Doctor. Which again, you see him go through a range of emotions there.
Yeah.
He's almost what he's doing.
He's almost appalled at himself because she's left to point out, the Dalek's not the one pointing a gun at my head.
And she says, "What are you changing into?"
Yeah.
Or something like that.
She does, and it's a nice little bit of, turnaround symbolism to it.
Which is in reaction to a bizarre little scene where the Dalek's opened itself up and appears to be enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah, it's oddly touching in a way, isn't it?
Yes.
That it's probably never felt this simple pleasure that, there's the sunlight on its skin.
But it's once it's been pointed out that this is not normal Dalek behaviour, he begins to hate himself, doesn't he?
Yeah, and that's really horrible as well, that it's such a twisted creature that it can't cope with a sort of more positive...
feelings of contentment.
It can't just enjoy the sunlight, and it can't, it can't enjoy Rose's compassion or anything like that. It's...
That it can't adapt to this new state of being, this new order, that it would rather face, elimination of itself. It would rather commit suicide than something other than what it was.
Yeah, I think that's shit. And not the concept of the story, but those special effects for that suicide.
No, is this your bone of contention that you have with it?
I can't stand it. It's just it doesn't feel. It doesn't look. I can't. There's no logic to that. It's an explosion inside some floating balls.
It does smack of, we can do this now on screen, so we're going to do it.
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it if the top fell off and a puff of smoke had come out the top.
Well, yeah, we have had them self-destruct before, haven't we? And we have one.
Yeah, well, all the Daleks, it just electrocute himself. Anything, it doesn't even have to blow up.
We have one. We have one.
I'm picking holes in a great story, really. To be honest, I love this story. I think it's an excellent story. It's a little bit shit, the effects in certain places, but this is a brand new series. They're not spending a lot of money on it until they know it's doing well.
Well, it's not the quality effect for me. It's just the fact that it feels a bit showy, that they're doing that thing where all the Dalek balls go in a big circle, just because they can,
Yeah,
it's definitely on someone's show reel.
Yeah. CGI that's obviously CGI
Yes.
when they've been using practical effects absolutely sucks.
Yeah,
As Grant pointed out with the Slitheen last week, you mix the two, you're asking one of them to look incredibly fake.
definitely. I mean, with this episode, I was keenly aware that more so than the last time I watched it, which is a couple of years ago now, just how obvious the join is between model and CGI. It did feel... I picked up on it a lot more. Although I do want to go back and I give props. I quite like... Even though it is still quite obviously a lump of rubber and a stagehand operating it, I do quite like the mutant inside the Dalek. It's the final, much like how we've had to previously lay out a lot of the groundwork for how the series operates, like explaining the TARDIS, explaining the Doctor. We've had to use this episode to explain everything important we need to know about Daleks. One, making the plunger a deadly weapon, making stairs no obstacle, and now really driving home that they're not just tin robots, that there is a biological element inside. And is this the first time they've been purple? They usually seem to be green previously.
Most of the times I can remember seeing them, were either black and white era or the green one. Yeah, the green from Genesis. You see a lot of Dalek mutants, or you see the glow of them, which might be the machinery. But
and the big claw.
Yeah, no, I was surprised it was pink, but they think they are.
Change is good
enough.
enough.
Probably continually upgrading themselves, aren't they? And they're not going to worry about what colour the chemicals make them, I guess.
It probably looks better against the gold as well, rather than a dark green.
But I liked the model. I thought it looked really good.
Well, we had a Dalek self-destruct once before, and it just went round and round in circles, which I liked more, really.
It got bored to death by Sylvester McCoy, yeah.
Oh, no, I was thinking of In Death to the Daleks.
Oh, yes.
I'd forgotten about the one in Remembrance. I just thought that was silly, the idea of the Doctor talking a Dalek to death.
So, 200 people are dead, and some soldiers who appear to have survived, and Goddard, who hasn't had too much to do by this point, finally take Van Statten to task, and he gets his just desserts. And by this time around, I was quite struck by the line. He's going to be left as a brainless junkie, and I can't figure out exactly if the junkie part is actually quite cruel. What are they going to do? Are they going to force feed him a load of coke or shoot him full of heroin before they dump him?
I suspect it's just lazy writing.
I suspect so as well.
I mean, it's fun to see him get his comeuppance, but it's actually a really horrible ending. And Goddard's revealed that she's just as unpleasant as the rest of them, really.
Yeah, I mean,
she's supposed to be like the messiah figure for this corporation. She that's the wrong word to use, but she's supposed to be, right now we're going to run things properly and not from some selfish guy, but she's using the same methodology.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 200 people have died and someone's got to answer for it, but instead she's just as bad as him.
Yeah,
the king is dead, long live the queen.
Precisely. Because I was thinking about this. I mean, Van Statten is a thoroughly unpleasant person. He's a coward. He's he's a bully, he's an egotist, but I'll give him his props. In a crisis, he was there all the way through. He never tried to run away. Okay, he was looking after his selfish interests, but he, in his own way, was helpful and incidental to, in some sense, he wasn't useless in a crisis. He was helping the Doctor, hacking systems and doing what he could. So
it was. There were moments where you thought he's realised his error. Not the error of his ways, but he's realised that in this case certainly he needs to pull himself up.
Yeah, he's going to have to take some responsibility.
So there could have been a redemption arc for him, but instead it's left in the hands of Goddard, who's got no time for him.
RTD2 would have the redemption arc.
Yes, it would. Totally agree on that. He would. I think if he gave us another polish,
It seems like the joke's too good to pass up on, though, isn't it? Having
Yeah,
Van Statten suffer the same indignities that he's visited on others.
Yeah.
I guess.
we've got to have that cruel irony.
And it's very possible that Goddard didn't go through with this threat. She was just, not winding him up, but, like she was putting the fear of God into him.
Yeah.
As another lesson. So we don't know, but he's decided some road.
Well,
hasn't he? But that it just made me think, that other poor guy is still out there.
Yeah.
So we come to the final scene.
Yeah, so the Doctor gets
Back where we started.
back where we started, indeed. We're back down in Van Statten's museum, and the Doctor's rather melancholy. Rose points out to him, with the Dalek gone, he's now the winner, as it were, of the Time War. And we get a bit of a disconsolate, I win, how about that? And Rose tries to see the sunny side, says, well, you didn't know the Dalek had survived. Maybe there are other Time Lords out there still, but the Doctor does seem to shoot that down pretty quick. Like he would know, he says, in his own mind.
Because he's a bloody know-it-all who's wrong.
I think he's just a misery guts.
He was there when the whole place blew up, though, wasn't he? So I'm still trying to work out how he did actually survive.
Who?
The Doctor.
Oh, well...
And they never really explain how the Dalek survived, either.
Well, this one
Didn't it
say
get blasted out of a battle or something and land somewhere 50 years before or something like that?
Yeah, they say I think it
There's
fell
a
through a wormhole.
2000 AD comic strip called The Meltdown Man, right? And there's a nuclear bomb, and he realises he's not going to be able to run far enough away, so he sits on the bomb, waits for it to blow up.
Oh, yeah.
And he wakes up in the future, where it's like Planet of the Apes, but they're all
it's a Catwoman
cats,
and
cats, things like that. And it's like, how the fuck does that supposed to work? And that's what I was thinking. That's what I always think. That's where I go to with this. He's pressed the button the moment. A lot of this is future knowledge, but he's pressed a button and then he's suddenly safe. And a Dalek spinning round out there somewhere.
Well,
I need that explained.
Don't worry, Big Finish will do it one day.
Well, not to derail, but I thought the explanation was what we saw on TV. Just the Doctor doesn't remember it. The Doctor's got a bit of he knows at some point he may have pressed a button, and next thing he knows, suddenly he's Christopher Eccleston. But I was of the understanding that how things played out in the Day of the Doctor was how things always played out. What happened.
Okay.
I think
it's just I can't keep that all in my head for long enough to actually follow the path. Maybe I'll have to write some notes.
I seem to remember.
Well, we're going to come to that episode in about 4 or 5 years anyway. So
Yeah.
Well, can I call it cop out of the Doctor now then? Because that's really what it was, wasn't it? Mind you, we'd already had Timothy Dalton plus his spit.
The Stephen Moffat story. There's not going to be any logic in the second half. That's
There's no bloody logic over the Time War anyway, because the Time Lords come back, don't they? And then they, and I seem to remember a Capaldi story where he's basically back on Gallifrey interacting with them, and one of them regenerates into a woman.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to have been looking for them, wasn't he? But he's like completely ignored it immediately after.
Oh,
just carried on. Then found them anyway.
It's all a bag of shite.
I don't know why they feel the
bastards.
need to just say, we've got to lock the Time Lords away because we don't want them coming back. Just don't write the name Time Lords in your script then.
Yeah, just lock them away and leave it at that.
Yeah.
They're giving us all these stupid reasons that people are going to argue over for years. Just don't give one.
See, we're just playing into their hands, really.
Let us write Doctor. No, sorry. We are doing that thing.
So we're coming to the ending now. So Adam runs in to tell them they're going to concrete the entire museum, which seems a bit wasteful, but hey ho. And I did again. This is me following the B plot here. Where's he managed to find a change of clothes so quick?
Is he
He's in a
wearing
completely
different
different
clothes?
outfit.
Well, he lives there, doesn't he?
He does, but
don't they all live in the bunker?
But it feels like it's all been like 10 minutes since the Dalek blew itself up at best. Doesn't feel like a great amount of time has passed.
He's wearing a black shirt to start with, I seem to remember. Has he changed his shirt then?
Yeah, I think he's into like a... Yeah, he's definitely... Yeah. I'll have to... yeah, I'm certain he's managed to change. At least
Maybe
his
it's a
top.
continuity error.
It's amazing how he can change so quickly, and Christopher Eccleston hasn't changed for 6 episodes. Unless he has.
Oh, he's changed his jumper colours.
Well, I was going to say his jumper.
Oh, he probably has, actually, yeah.
My first question is, would the Doctor have left Adam to be sealed in the concrete?
I think he would have held him under.
No, he wouldn't. I think he kind of knew that Rose was going to get him to come with. He was like, he just didn't want to agree to it, but he knew it was going to happen.
Even though he's a bit pretty.
Yeah.
Which is
Who's that line that he would, if he really was against it, he would be arguing at that point, wouldn't he?
Yes, I suppose.
But, he kind of knows he's got to take him out of there anyway. He might even just be like, I'm actually just taking you home and we're just teaching you a lesson, thinking you know all this stuff about aliens, and we're going to show you don't, and then drop you home. But then Rose might have bent his ear.
Why didn't Adam just go home, though? Why didn't he get that 1,500 from Heathrow? I mean, was the concrete literally coming down the stairs behind him?
I mean, he seems to have spent, the last couple of years living in a bunker with an egotist like Van Statten, a lot of soldiers. He's probably just, and the only other women we see are hard as nails soldiers and high power corporate businesswomen like Goddard. He's, presuming he's heterosexual, he's got no chance with that. So, and he's probably thinking he's never going to get a chance like that again with,
I bet he's been using that Slovene arm.
Perhaps some think best we draw a veil over.
Well, I was going to say, the doctor with those two in the TARDIS, he's going to have to turn the music up quite a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with all of that if I was the Doctor at my age,
Under my roof.
Well, I like to think that that he's deliberately put bunk beds in there.
That's a great thought, isn't it? That's so funny.
And I hope it's Adric's bedroom and it's been unchanged.
Oh, don't!
Imagine the smell.
I'm just thinking about someone talking about what was under Adric's bed once.
Oh, spare pictures of Nissa.
I always imagine that the ceiling to his bedroom looked like Wookiee hole or something.
Actually, under Adric's bed, there is a crumpled air hostess uniform.
Oh dear!
I suppose at this point, how long does it take crumpled toilet paper to fossilise?
This has gone downhill.
Yeah.
Or uphill. Or
it's gone down market, I'll say that.
It's gone very down market, yes.
How do we finish?
One of those blue
now?
comedians. Right, so I'll put a cut point there. So at that point, we've now got our third new member to the TARDIS, and it's now the Doctor, Rose, and Adam heading off into the universe to experience all the new wonders possible out there, and setting up a new dynamic now for at least the next episode. And it's going to be interesting to see, going back over the next episode, the long game, to see how that dynamic kind of plays out again, how that changes. But I think we've gone on quite a long time here, lads, and I think we've all expressed how we feel about Dalek. I mean, it's got its ups and downs, but I think we're generally feeling quite positive about that. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's my probably favourite episode up to this point is probably still Unquiet Dead, but this is this is very close to it. I think this is an excellent episode.
This would be my favourite so far. This is the one we were all waiting for, I think, in 2005.
Well, I still think The End of the World is probably my favourite so far, but I do think my favourite of the series is to come in a couple of weeks' time. But this was for me. This episode was a bit half and half. There was a lot of things I really liked, and there was a lot of things I wasn't too keen on. But I was still entertained. I still enjoyed it.
What struck?
If I have one criticism of it, it would just be I wanted more Daleks. I wanted a big. But I mean, that comes down the line.
Yes,
I think,
and it was a good way to introduce the creature.
He's saving the best for later. I think, really.
Yeah, and that shows you he knows more than me. Don't get me right, any.
What strikes me watching it again as well is that it's actually quite a small scale story. It's not on a we have the museum and we have Van Statten's office and a couple of corridors. There's not much more.
One location, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all in one construct.
So, I think we've basically summed up everything we want to say about Dalek for this week. And it's, as ever, it's been great talking to you. But, so all I can say for now is you have been listening to the Powell Estate Neighbourhood Watch. I've been your Who host, Grant. And as ever, it's a goodbye from Matt.
Bye.
And it's bye-bye from Graham.
Bye.
And we'll see you all very soon.
Next time, the long game.
The Powell Estate Neighbourhood Watch.